The board meeting will begin in 5 minutes. If board members can take their seats, we'll start in just a moment. Right. The September 5th State Board meeting will now come to order. Good morning and welcome to the September 5th, 2025 State Board of Education meeting. Board members, please engage your microphones before speaking and turn them off when you are finished speaking. Please note that the board members may be using their cell phones and laptop computers to access the agenda and information related to this meeting. Live streaming is available through the State Board of Education website. Would the recording secretary please call the roll?
Kristen Christensen,
Here.
Maggie Douglas,
Here.
Lisa Schoenhoff,
Here.
Liz Renner,
Here.
Kirk Penner,
Present.
Sherry Jones,
Here.
Elizabeth Tegmeyer,
Here.
Deborah Neary, Commissioner Maher,
Here.
7 present, 1 absent.
Quorum is established. Please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Information regarding the Open Meetings Act is posted as you enter the room from the main entrance doors. The Open Meetings Act is also posted on the State Board of Education's website. Susan Stake, president of NCTE, please join us at the front of the room for the annual NCTE presentation. Dr. Maher, would you like to introduce her?
Yeah, maybe I'll just say, as she's getting settled there, that this is the annual report, and we appreciate Ms. Stake being here to present to us. And also, a point of personal privilege, if you don't mind, we used to work together, so it's good to see you again, and welcome to the group.
Well, good morning, President Tegmeyer, members of the State Board of Education, Dr. Maher, Dr. Four. My name is Susan Stake, and I am a teacher at Waverly Middle School, and I'm also serving as president of the Nebraska Council on Teacher Education, or NCTE. I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to share highlights from our annual report and give you a sense of how our council supports educator preparation programs and certification across Nebraska. This is our executive committee for the 25-26 year. And I'll be going over an overview of NCTE membership, and then our purpose and what we have worked on this year. So NCTE is an advisory group. We bring together stakeholders from across the state that are directly involved or interested in teacher and administrator preparation and certification. This is the structure of NCTE. We meet 3 times a year as a full council and 3 times a year as the executive committee. Some of our key responsibilities will be to review the educator preparation programs through site visits. We approve and develop or develop, the standards for certification and endorsements. And we work with Rule 20, 21, and 24. The NCTE membership, we have 3 groups that are represented in the council. We have governance, teachers, and higher ed. And we focus with balance, our membership with balanced representation. We have membership includes higher ed, school governance, and then classroom teachers, and each member then serves as a liaison to their constituencies, keeping communication flowing both ways. If you'll look at the chart, each nominating organization is directed to consider geographic location, state board district, gender, ethnicity, grade level, subject area, and school size for membership. Members come from different sectors, colleges of education, school boards, administrators, teachers. We try to ensure that all perspectives are represented. NCTE aligns with the strategic vision of the State Board and the Department of Education with educator effectiveness. We do want to ensure that students are taught by well-prepared educators. We provide, we strengthen the Department of Education's regulatory and approval system with stakeholder-informed recommendations. We embed standards of assessment, instruction, and content readiness into our educator preparation programs. And we have worked on creating endorsement pathways to address the teacher shortage. Aligning to the State Board's legislative priorities with foundational literacy, we are focusing with our educator preparation programs, ensuring that teachers are trained in evidence-based literacy instruction, and we support then the development of high-quality professional learning for teachers. Excellent educators, we support certification pathways, alternate routes for certification, and also incentives to attract and retain teachers. And then for engagement, to increase engagement with students, families, communities, we support policies for high quality educator preparation that are student-centered, culturally responsive, and inclusive teaching practices. The next part of the presentation will be a review of our work with Rule 20, 21, and 24. So items under consideration for Rule 20 are the following. The addition of a guidance document for dyslexia, definitions, evidence-based practices, and science of reading, and then the educator preparation program, the approval process. For Rule 21, these were key revisions and changes this year. Just to summarize those, as you look at those, these updates simplify certification, reduce administrative barriers, and provide schools with flexible staffing options, all without lowering standards. For Rule 24, World 24 changes and expands opportunities for educators to earn endorsements and to align programs with evolving instructional needs. World 24, the endorsement process, you can see we have ad hoc committees, go to the NCTE then, we make recommendations to the state board, and that goes through the process then for approval by the governor. These are endorsements and guidelines that have been reviewed or are pending for the 24, 25, and into the 26 year. The endorsements that have been reviewed, and then endorsements that we will be working on. For the educator preparation programs reviewed, NCTE members actively participate in these reviews. They're both on-site and off-site, and often in partnership with CAPE, a national accrediting body. And then our opportunities for 25-26. Clear communication is central to NCTE's work. We act as a bridge between the State Board of Education and the P20 stakeholders, making sure our feedback is timely and responsive. And this two-way engagement strengthens and supports high-quality teaching and learning across Nebraska. On behalf of NCTE, I would like to thank the board for valuing the recommendations and insights of our P20 educational experts, prioritizing high-quality educator preparation, where students benefit from excellent instruction, and supporting educational excellence across the entire P20 continuum. Your support allows NCTE to continue to provide thoughtful, balanced guidance to strengthen the teacher and administrator preparation programs, and ultimately improves outcomes for all Nebraska students. Thank you for the opportunity to share our work today. Do you have any questions?
Lisa? Yes.
Okay, thank you so much for being here, and thank you for the work that you do. I don't think my microphone's working. There we go. I appreciate that you being here and explaining. One of the questions that I have as we look at our NAEP scores across the state, or across the nation, but in our state, how do you use the NAEP scores to determine what you're doing with your advisory group?
That's a good question. When the groups are formed, I'm sure I might defer to maybe, maybe I could defer to one of our higher ed instructors, if that's okay.
Sure.
So maybe Tim Fry is here. Could you?
I can come up. I think.
Okay.
Really, this is a Jen Cantor-Brad-Dirksen question, actually.
Okay.
I can try and answer.
Okay.
At least a little bit. On my NCT experience, morning everyone. My name is Tim Fry. I serve as the Dean for the College of Education at Doane, and also as Committee B Chair for NCTE right now. Thanks, Susan. Thanks for sharing too. So, question about NAEP scores, right, and how that impacts Teacher Ed Advisory Committee. When you're talking about endorsements, which is what connected to content areas, right, NAEP scores overall performance for students.
And I was thinking about, like, you guys are kind of over standards for what's being taught in our education preparation program. So I would think my thought is that the NAEP scores are pretty indicative of some high needs that we have. And so wondering how you're addressing that on the board.
Yeah, so the NCT agendas are determined by the executive committee in partnership with Jim Kent and Brad Dirksen and NDE, right, oversight of those pieces. And the endorsements themselves are typically on a rotation, just like the standards are for Rule 24. So they don't necessarily come to the committee based on scores. They come to the committee based on when they're up for review. And how the data is used is, again, more of a question for Brad and Jim. I think the committee's job is to take what the different stakeholder groups in the state perceive about those needs in teacher education, and then implement them based on the guidance, right, from you all when we get the Rule 20 and the Rule 24s back. So our input is based on a lot of factors, including what teachers and administrators are seeing in their school spaces. And that includes data and scores, both from local, right, context and from statewide context. I'm not sure we see the national context a lot, I'll be honest with you, right, and what's there.
Can you tell me just a little more about the stakeholders? Which stakeholders are you referring to?
Sure, so NCTE is made up of those three groups that Susan shared, right?
yes.
The higher ed, one institution member per, the teachers represented, and then the governance group, which includes school board members, administrators, I'm forgetting some other folks, but district level administrators as well, on the governance side of things. So all of those folks, we come together in those committees, right, to talk about proposed rule changes, proposed guidance, proposed certification that helps, right, strengthen teacher quality.
Okay, and then can I ask one more thing?
Yeah, I'm sorry, yes.
That's okay. I'm wondering, do you guys do like any kind of teacher surveys to feel out how they're feeling prepared when they come out of our education preparation programs?
Yes, I think there was an administrator survey actually that was sent to schools just last year,
Okay.
where they gave feedback about how they are seeing the new teachers coming into the system, you know, for preparation. Do they have support?
I'm kind of interested in learning, because I know you're talking about science of reading, if the push for science of reading in our college programs are helping our teachers feel more prepared to teach kids to read. That's like my priority in being here, so that's one of my biggest questions.
Now,
I can speak to that a little bit.
Yeah,
That's
that's
okay.
fine.
And I
And,
know, again, Jim
I
and
can
Brad could too. But each year, all of the first-year administrators and the candidates who graduated from EPPs in Nebraska and certified and took jobs receive a survey from the Nebraska Department of Education about their preparation, including questions about science of reading, overall effectiveness, preparation and content, classroom, like the whole rubric worth of educator effectiveness. And so those surveys go out every year and have for as long as I've been involved in teacher education in Nebraska. They also go to third-year teachers, so both first-year and third-year teachers. And then the EPPs get that information back. The state also compiles that data back on educator effectiveness from first and third year, again, from both the candidates and the principals or administrators who are supervising them. So yes, every year, data is gathered on how they rate their teachers.
And are you guys over the substitute teacher program too, or is it just, does
Well-
that fall into your umbrella?
well, they've added that, you know, endorsement. And I know from somebody who works in this system, we have had, for example, a paraprofessional who, you know, used the alternate pathways to become a classroom teacher. That's just happened in the last couple of years. And with a substitute, I know that we have teachers that have entered our system as substitute teachers, have worked into maybe a paraprofessional role, and now are working on certification. So those alternative pathways are important, and I do think encourage people to enter the teaching profession.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you for the question. Are there any other questions?
Sherry?
Yes, I do. And first of all, thank you, Susan, for being here. I appreciate that. And I guess I just want to say that it is my hope that the members of the Executive Committee of NCTE will do what they can to bring about a more inclusive teacher membership, and specifically the inclusion of non-public school teachers and teachers not belonging to the union in its 16-teacher roster. And I believe this can be accomplished through the current organizational policies if you so choose. So I would appreciate some effort in that part. So thank you.
That is on our agenda for our next meeting to review that policy.
Any other board member questions or comments? Right. Thank you for
Thank
coming
you.
today.
All right, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Agenda item 2.2, Kristen, would you please read the resolution?
Yes, this is a resolution for Attendance Awareness Month, Nebraska Every Day Counts. Whereas the mission of the Nebraska Department of Education is to lead and support the preparation of all Nebraskans for learning, earning, and living. Whereas chronic absence, missing 10% of time in membership, including excused, unexcused, and out-of-school disciplinary incidences, is a leading indicator and cause of disproportionate educational opportunities. Whereas rates of chronic absenteeism have dramatically increased since 2020, whereas last year over 65,000 Nebraska students, or 21%, were chronically absent from school, whereas a study of attendance and achievement data of Nebraska students illustrates negative academic effects for students after only 5 days of absence, whereas students who improve their attendance rates improve their academic prospects and chances for graduating, whereas the State Board of Education recognizes the importance of chronic absenteeism reduction as a measure of success for their legislative priority focused on student, family, school, and community engagement, whereas the Nebraska Department of Education declared its commitment to having, cutting in half, chronic absenteeism by 2030, whereas the Nebraska Department of Education has included reduction in chronic absenteeism in AQuest, the state's accountability and support system, whereas some barriers to student attendance may include lack of access to healthcare resources, unreliable transportation, low student engagement, bullying, and mobility, whereas schools and communities can work together to better understand the root causes of poor attendance, and whereas chronic absence can be significantly reduced when parents, families, communities, and community partners work together to monitor and promote attendance and address barriers to regular school attendance. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the State Board of Education hereby proclaims that regular and consistent attendance matters to our state and students. Resolved that the State Board of Education believes state policymakers and each school district must put a concerted effort to reduce chronic absenteeism. Resolved that the State Board of Education joins stakeholders around the country in recognizing September as Attendance Awareness Month with the campaign Nebraska Every Day Counts. Resolved that the Nebraska Department of Education will provide informational resources to assist families, schools, and communities to reduce chronic absenteeism. And resolved that the State Board of Education encourages local boards of education to commit to and establish goals and strategies to reduce chronic absenteeism in their district. Signed on behalf of the Nebraska State Board of Education, this 5th day of September 2025.
Thank you. Sherry, do you have the motion to adopt the resolution?
I do, Madam Chair. I move to adopt the resolution to recognize September as Attendance Awareness Month and commence the Nebraska Every Day Counts campaign.
Second.
It is moved and seconded to adopt the resolution to recognize September as Attendance Awareness Month and commence the Nebraska Everyday Counts campaign. Is there any discussion on this motion? Well, I would just add that I think that this is an appropriate motion at the beginning of our of our school year to have a resolution about attendance. We know that kids can't learn if they're not in school, and I also appreciate the fact that this is one of our board priorities, is addressing it. And I'm thankful for the work that we saw our staff doing yesterday in helping guide our strategic plan to include this. And so while we as state board members can't drive to students' houses and pick them up, we certainly can establish policies and different things at our level to help encourage schools in attendance. So looking forward to seeing that chronic absenteeism reduced just a little bit, we hope, every year. So the motion is to adopt the resolution to recognize September as Attendance Awareness Month and commence the Nebraska Everyday Counts campaign. Would the recording secretary please call the roll?
Renner,
Yes.
Douglas,
Yes.
Christensen,
Yes.
Jones,
Yes.
Tegmeyer,
Yes.
Penner,
Yes.
Neary, Schoenhoff,
Yes.
7 yes, 1 absent.
The affirmative has it, and the resolution is adopted. Item 3, the next item is Commissioner's Report. Commissioner Maher, please provide your report.
Thank you. First of all, there are no items that have been identified to be removed from the consent agenda. If board members wish to remove any items from the consent agenda, please fill out the form at this time. Any items that are removed from the consent agenda will be taken up under additional business. Well, good morning, board members, and anybody who is listening to us today. By now, all of our schools are in session, and I'm happy with what I'm hearing occurring across the state. I've greatly enjoyed seeing the many back-to-school pictures and also hearing the marching band in the morning as we come into the NDE offices. Just a reminder that school has started, and so have fall activities. Also at the agency this year, we've been busy in terms of getting back into the swing of the school year, and I want to share a few brief updates from the agency. First, since the last time we met, the Department of Education hosted our first School Financing Review Commission meeting. We had a great first meeting in this room, including the organization of the commission. An important agenda item included providing some context around the history of school finance. Both former Deputy Commissioner Halstead and Bryce Wilson did a nice job of presenting in that regard, and it really have talked about how we've gotten to where we are with school financing. You can find a recording and the materials from that meeting on the Department of Education website if you so choose. The consensus of the first meeting was to have the group meet monthly as we prepare for the Commission's first legislative report, which is due December 1st of this year. So our next convening of the group will be on September 22nd, right here again in this room. There's a lot to get done if we want to have any real meaning in that first report. And I would tell you that there is a sense of urgency that I felt, and that the evidence of having more meetings than we're required to have indicates. Next, on the literacy front, we've been pleased with the implementation we're seeing in the field. As I shared in my report last month, we're seeing early indications that the work thus far is having positive impact on literacy outcomes. And I think as time goes by, that's going to become more and more obvious. One of my concerns has been the long-term sustainability of the work we're doing in this area. Several of the funding sources that are currently in use have an expiration date. And believe it or not, those time just keeps clicking away on those things. So we need to continue to think through the long-term impact of our collective efforts and talk about a word that I think some people are tired of me talking about, and that is sustainability of the effort. How do we make sure that once we do improve those literacy outcomes, that those outcomes are sustainable for long into the future? And in that regard, I received a little homework at the last board meeting from Board Chair Tegmeyer saying, you need to find a book for us all to read and for us all to kind of rally around that is basic enough for everybody to understand. I think she meant me. But maybe you as well.
Yeah, it's a, required reading, Kirk.
Hey, this is my report.
Immunity.
So, yeah, immunity. So the challenge was accepted, and I don't know if I got the perfect book for us, but I got a book that I think really meets the challenge as presented, and I believe this book to be a good basis for us all to read. We'll get a copy for all of you, and the book is called Mighty Moves. It is a research-backed, classroom-tested strategies to ensure K-3 reading success. It's by Lindsay Kemeny, and I know that it is used in at least one of our EPP, by one of our EPPs, maybe multiple, but I know for sure it's used by at least one. So the challenge was accepted. I have brought this book. We'll put a book in all of your hands. And I say this again, for me, it's an easy read. That concludes my report.
All right. Any questions or comments for the commissioner? I think there's colored pictures in this book, Kirk, so we know not everybody enjoys reading, but thank you. That's exciting, and hopefully other members of the public, post-secondary educators, just everyone can it's kind of like the one book, one Nebraska. You know, I see that as we can all sort of grasp onto that same vision for literacy. So thank you for doing that. There is no president's report. That was it. That was my president's report. Thank you. Okay. All right. Right. We don't have anyone signed up at this time for public comment. There, submitted written public comments are attached in the electric meeting agenda for the board and the public to review. So. Item 6, consent agenda. Is there a motion to adopt the consent agenda?
I move to adopt the consent agenda.
Second.
It is moved and seconded to adopt the consent agenda. Per board policy, there is no discussion on the motion to adopt the consent agenda. Would the recording secretary please call the roll?
Schoenhoff,
Yes.
Neary, Christensen,
Yes.
Renner,
Yes.
Jones,
Yes.
Douglas,
Yes.
Penner,
Yes.
Tegmeyer.
Yes.
7 yes, 1 absent.
The affirmative has it, and the consent agenda is adopted. Next item of business are reports from the standing committees. I will report on behalf of the Executive Committee meeting. The Executive Committee reports on its September 4th, 2025 meeting. Members present were Chair Elizabeth Tegmeyer, Vice Chair Deb Neary, Sherry Jones, and Liz Renner. The committee reviewed 4 information items. First, NDE staff provided the committee with a presentation and update on the strategic planning process in preparation for the afternoon work session. Second, the committee reviewed potential board bylaw and policy revisions as recommended by NDE staff. The committee will continue discussion on this topic at future meetings. Next, the committee received notification of upcoming vacancies on the State Rehabilitation Council. Finally, the committee reviewed the recommendation of an appointment to the Nebraska Assistive Technology Partnership Advisory Council. This item appeared on the consent agenda for approval. This concludes the Executive Committee report. Elizabeth Tegmeyer, Chair. Are there any questions on the Executive Committee report? Okay, item 7.2, Chair Kristen Christensen will report on behalf of the Budget and Finance Committee meeting.
The Budget and Finance Committee reports that at its Thursday, September 4th meeting, members present were Kristen Christensen, Maggie Douglas, Kirk Penner, and Lisa Schoenhoff. The committee reviewed 4 action items. The first item reviewed was for potential contracts using the improvement grant funds. The committee is recommending no action on this item. The second action item reviewed was for a contract with Bailey Education Group for work on the Nebraska Literacy Leadership Network. The committee recommends approval of this item. Next, the committee reviewed the proposed McKinney-Vento grant allocations for support of homeless students. The committee recommends approval of this item. The last action item reviewed was for contracts related to the statewide longitudinal data system grant. The committee recommends approval of this item as well. The committee then reviewed 2 discussion items, including board member travel expenses, noting no concerns. The other discussion item reviewed was the proposed deficit budget request, which will be an action item in October. Last, the committee reviewed 4 information items, including an update on the Comprehensive Literacy State Development Grant, the Nebraska Literacy Data Dashboard, and a potential contract for its development, a proposed contract for a program quality anchor for early childhood, and potential contracts for work on the Early Childhood Integrated Data System. This concludes the Budget and Finance Committee report. Kristen Christensen, Chair.
Any questions on the reports? Okay. Are there any questions on the reports in item 7.2.A? Okay, 7.2.B, the committee recommends no action on this item. Item 7.2.C, is there a motion on this item?
Yes, I move to authorize the commissioner to approve the contract for the Nebraska Literacy Leadership Network.
Second.
It is moved and seconded to authorize the commissioner to approve the contract for the Nebraska Literacy Leadership Network. Is there any discussion on this motion? Lisa?
Just to let the public be aware that this one is one that I'm looking forward to seeing throughout their work. It's basically one of the most important things I think we're doing in the state is training our administrators in literacy instruction. And I think that's one of the best things we can do to support our teachers with teaching literacy. So I'm excited about this one.
Yeah, Liz.
I am sure this was discussed in committee, but I just want to say it out loud for everybody that this is a really significant investment. It's exciting, and I hope that there is going to be reporting along the way to account for that $4.5 million or wherever it lands, because this was not in our regular budget, and I just want to make sure that we're tracking how we do with this gift.
Can I respond to that?
Yes.
We did talk about that in committee yesterday. The plan that, from what I understand, is that there will be regular monthly reports, kind of on the same schedule as the CLSD grant. And at the beginning, it'll be activity-based, and then as we move further into the project, it'll be more outcomes-based. So we should be seeing things regularly.
That's awesome. Love it. Thank you.
I did, President.
What?
One comment. Is there time for a
Yes, yeah,
comment?
yeah, I have a question, so you can give your
Okay.
comment, yeah.
Well, just my comment, when researching the Bailey Education Group, I saw that they had deep connections to Mississippi. And so I think most of us have knowledge about the Mississippi Miracle and all they've done with reading. So that gave me some encouragement that they're coming from Mississippi. So that's just a comment in my research that I found.
Excellent, yes, we are not piloting anything. We want proven strategies and techniques that we know will raise those literacy scores. I do have a question, and maybe a committee member, I'm not sure if I need to ask a committee member or a staff, but it is $4.5 million, and I know that this was a grant given to us, not from our budget that we receive from state funds. So it's $4.5 million, and my question is, how many administrators are going through this each year?
That was not something we discussed in committee, so that'd be a good question.
So that would be a question
someone else.
for, okay, could Lane come forward? As you get seated, so my question is, how many administrators are we looking for going through this program each year?
Good morning, Lane Carr in our Commissioner's Office. It's a great question, and it's something that we asked our vendor here on what we think would be possible, right? Especially as we're starting midway early in this semester. So in our design of the grant, as we were applying, we had intended on there to be 75 leaders per year, but we want to be working and negotiable in that with this first year especially.
So you're thinking that 75 each year, like different ones?
A cohort of leaders,
Because
yes.
I wasn't an old math teacher, but I have a calculator. And 4.5 million and only 75 people going through, that's $60,000 a year spent on each participant. And to me, that's a big price tag. We can pay for an entire college education for somebody. This is an alarming number to me, if our capacity is at 75 people.
So what I would say is it's 75 people, and then the plan is a cohort, right? So it'd be 75 people in the first year. We add 75, and those first 75 continue in that. So it'd be 150, and then ultimately on and on from that. So it's a huge investment, we agree, and it's really intensive supports. And I think that that's what's important about this, is that it's not only helping our leaders gain those skills, but then on-the-job coaching, intensive coaching with them.
Well, I guess it's, like this part of our job is to kind of be the fiscal hawks. And so I think it's really important that we receive evidence that this is starting to improve student proficiency in literacy, because if it's not, then we are going to need to really re-examine this program each year to see if this isn't moving the dial at $60,000 a person. We may need to change direction. Nobody wants to squander $4.5 million a year when so much is at stake for our kids' futures.
Madam President, could we clear that up just a little bit? And what Lane is saying is not inaccurate, but I'd like to give a little more of a complete picture as to what that would look like. And I'd ask Dr. Ford to mention that, yeah.
Good morning, I'm Ryan Four, and I've been working with Lane on this project. And so what Lane shared is true, is that in the initial application to the Sherwood Foundation, when we proposed the project, it was for 75 leaders. And with this vendor, what they proposed was for up to, I'm going to say 89 schools with 4 people in a school. And the cost per school in that was either $33,000 or $36,000. And that includes all of their expenses related to that. So the proposal from the vendor costed out at 89 schools at either, maybe it's $36,000 per school, is at about $2.9 million. We are asking here for board approval for up to $4.5 million, so that we've got some flexibility as we work in negotiation with the vendor. If, for example, they are able to serve more than the 89 schools in their original proposal, but we would take that at the costing that they put in their proposal per school. Now you might be asking, Why 4.5 million? When we wrote the grant was for 5 million a year. And what we asked for in that grant was 4.5 million per year for activities like this. And so this gives some flexibility with this vendor up to 4.5 million. If we do not contract with them for that much, because they are not able to support that many schools, any contract under this program would come back to you for approval.
So just so I understand, because I don't sit on this committee and I miss out on those conversations. So just so that I understand, so we'll have 89 schools that are going through this and 4 people per school. So 356 this first year or for all 5 years?
This is for a 1-year contract.
Okay, so we could actually be training, instead of just 75 people, 356.
Correct.
Okay, well, that does bring the number down a little bit more reasonably, but we'll still be keeping our eye on you. Any other questions or comments? All right. Yes, Lisa.
Okay, one thing I forgot to ask, how are the schools being chosen?
Great question. So as Dr. Stavum is coming on board with this project and our literacy officer is coming on board with this project, we will be working internally across the agency to determine a coalition of the willing, I'll say. It also may be reaching out to some schools that we might know would be willing partners in that.
Great. No other questions? The motion is to authorize the commissioner to approve the contract for the Nebraska Literacy Leadership Network. Would the recording secretary please call the roll?
Renner,
Yes.
Douglas,
Yes.
Christensen,
Yes.
Jones,
Yes.
Tegmeyer,
Yes.
Penner,
Yes.
Neary, Schoenhoff,
Yes.
7 yes, 1 absent.
The affirmative has it, and the motion to authorize the commissioner to approve the contract for the Nebraska Literacy Leadership Network is adopted. Is there a motion on item 7.2.d?
Yes, I move to authorize the commissioner to approve the McKinney-Vento grants for the 2025-2026 school year.
Second.
It is moved and seconded to authorize the commissioner to approve the McKinney-Vento grants for the 2025-2026 school year. Is there any discussion on the motion? Well, I have a question, and it may not, committee members can start, and we'll see if we need to have a question for staff, because this is my third year on the board, so the third time that I've been voting to approve this grant. My question, I'm just wondering, how are these funds used exactly? And how are we measuring student success? What are the metrics on this?
I can answer the first question.
Okay,
The
Kristen.
second one, maybe might defer to someone else. The first question, how they're used, from what our discussion included yesterday, it was kind of 2 main functions. The first one was a liaison in the district or in the school that only supports homeless students, and helping them and their family to find additional resources to help remove barriers to getting them to school, whether that be helping them sign up for SNAP or WIC or additional community resources that might alleviate some of their stress. And the second bucket was transportation, reliable transportation to get them to school as often as possible.
Oh, okay, thank you. So, yeah, so my question then is, because the rationale that we received says that this is a grant process to promote the enrollment, attendance, and success of homeless children and youth, and I'm not sure who this falls under. Would be Beth. All right, could you come forward and help me with my second question, which is, how are we measuring student success? What are the metrics that we're using to determine if we're helping and we're seeing kids succeed? I'm curious about that.
Yes, good morning. I'm Ann Carmody. I'm the McKinney-Vento State Coordinator. The schools, they use a variety of ways to measure the success of the grant funds. One of the biggest ones they use is attendance. So a lot of the kids who are experiencing homelessness also experience chronic absenteeism. And so they use attendance rates to really help measure whether or not that, especially when it comes to the transportation component, because that is a large component of the grant that a lot of districts use, is are the kids getting to school, because that tends to be their number one barrier. They also, on higher grades, they look at graduation rates, just grades, behavior referrals, and then that all ties into their comprehensive needs assessment that they do with their school improvement plan or their continuous improvement plan.
And so because some of the districts I've noticed are consistently on the list every year for receiving this grant, do they have to show, are they having to prove that they are seeing success in order to receive this grant in consecutive years? I know we approve it every year, but if we see a school district that is not, maybe they aren't seeing success with these funds, does that factor into whether they receive it the next year or in subsequent years?
It does. So there is a component in the grant that where they have to explain how they evaluate the use of the funds. That is scored within our rubric of the grant, since it is a competitive grant, that when they use that. So it also goes into identification. And then, excuse me, if we're seeing that the use of fund, like if they are not having a very good explanation and they're not scoring very well on that and in their evaluation of the use of funds, it could then lead to them getting a lower score when we grade it, and then they wouldn't receive as much money.
And so were there districts that were turned away for these funds this year?
No.
Okay.
No, not this year. We had 2 new districts apply. We had Columbus Public Schools and Gearing Public Schools apply, and they, after some professional development we did with them last year, they realized they were under-identifying, and so they were able to apply this year and get some funds.
Okay.
So in the competitive grant, everybody got something.
Okay, great. Thank you for your explanation. Any other questions?
And then, could you reiterate, the school districts have to match with their Title I funds?
Correct. So all the numbers that were presented to you, those will actually double into the pot of money that the district has to spend for McKinney-Vento, because under Title I-A, they have to match those funds. So if they were awarded $20,000 with McKinney-Vento, then they have to match those funds with $20,000 or more in Title I.
I did not know that. Thank you.
Yes.
That's great. Any other questions or comments? Thank you.
Thank you.
The motion is to authorize the commissioner to approve the McKinney-Vento grants for the 2025-2026 school year. Would the recording secretary please call the roll?
Christensen,
Yes.
Neary, Jones,
Yes.
Renner,
Yes.
Douglas,
Yes.
Schoenhoff,
Yes.
Tegmeyer,
Yes.
Penner.
Yes.
7 yes, 1 absent.
The affirmative has it, and the motion to authorize the commissioner to approve the McKinney-Vento grants for the 25-26 school year is adopted. Is there a motion on item 7.2.e?
Yes, I move to authorize the commissioner to approve contracts for SLDS grant activities.
Second.
It is moved and seconded to authorize the commissioner to approve contracts for the SLDS grant activities. Is there any discussion on the motion? Lisa?
Yes, this is one that I did quite a bit of research on. As technology advances so quickly, it's one that I feel alarmed about. And so I did a lot of digging in and trying to figure out everything that I could about it. And one of the things that I had noticed is that our data access and use policy and procedures, including research and evaluations, manual for the NDE is dated back to 2013. And so one of the things that I did was I reached out to our officer, our information systems officer, Kristen, and she said that she's on it. They're working on updating it and making sure that it reflects current technology and where we're at. I mean, with it growing so quickly, we really do need to be cognizant of student data and student privacy. And so would you mind, Kristen, is that okay, President, if Kristen comes up and talks about her work with this manual?
Yes, that is fine. And I actually have 2 questions for her. So.
Awesome. Kristen, do you mind coming up?
On here? Oh, there we go. Kristen Yates, the Information Systems Officer. Did you have a specific question that you wanted to talk about?
I think if you could kind of just reiterate what we talked about yesterday with the grants and then also the work that you're currently doing with the manual.
Yeah, so the work that we're currently doing with the manual is updating it. The major federal statute that protects student data and how we share it and how we use it both internally and externally is FERPA, which has a very attractive name. We talked a little bit yesterday about the situations in which we would potentially share data out of the SLDS data warehouse. And basically out of FERPA, those are 4 main areas for research, which would go through our research review board and be approved before we decided to sign on, research done on our behalf about things that we are interested in, evaluation of our internal programs, in situations where somebody's subcontracting out a function they would usually do, like say a bunch of schools in an ESU want the ESU to build them a dashboard. With their permission, we might release data from those schools who had consented to that to build that dashboard because it's more efficient for one person to do it. I think that you're absolutely right about the amount of change in privacy issues and security. We are revising what is a dated document. I do think it covers the major points of FERPA, which is a sort of our guiding light for privacy and security stuff. Feds don't often update that either, and they probably should for the reasons that you point out. The world is changing very rapidly. The intention with the update, and we've already started on some parts of it, is to make more clear the measures that we take to protect data, even if it's aggregated data, like on our website, which involve not showing any cells that are below 10 in size. Also, I think we're going to hit a little heavier on the privacy side of things. You sort of have security, which is protecting the data, making sure nobody gets it, making sure nobody hacks us. And then there's privacy, which is us taking a lot of care in making sure that we never disclose individual identities of students. So information about students is a privacy issue.
Can I ask a follow-up question real quick then? Okay. So you said one of the functions that occurs sometimes is subcontracting work. And so do the private companies receive personally identifiable information on students? Do they have access to that?
It would depend on the work. So that particular FERPA exemption is for schools who are subcontracting work that they would ordinarily do themselves. So it really is limited to a situation. Sometimes it's easier for us to wrangle data for small schools than it is for them to wrangle it themselves, because we collect a certain data set every year, and we have that consistently. If they would come to us and say, hey, in writing, we give our permission for you to share this data with the ESUs because they're going to work on making us a dashboard. That's a FERPA permissible situation. for releasing data. The basic FERPA rule is you don't release data without consent.
Right.
So,
Right, so my question is then, are parents notified that their child's personally identifiable data is being released? I mean, because to me, the school is not the guardian of the child's FERPA, the parent is the guardian of the child's FERPA. So do parents receive notification, and are they able to opt out of having their child's data released?
Yep.
I mean, because, you know, like, the internet is just this great big, you know, you release it
Oh,
out there,
oh,
and
yeah,
anyone
yeah.
can
Okay, yes.
use it and access it, and that's my question is, the school's not the final say-so, the parent is.
So under FERPA, the school as the local education agency for that series of data that they collect, which they should disclose every year, what data they collect, what they use it for, what their directory information is. For that administrative data, the school is, under FERPA, allowed to disclose it without individually asking permission from parents. What the right you do have under FERPA as a parent is to go in anytime and look and see what's in your kid's record and look and see what data there is. Another right you have as a parent under FERPA is to say, hey, I don't want my student's directory information disclosed. Directory information is generally sort of more benign demographic data, like so-and-so is on the soccer team and is in 9th grade and got a national merit scholarship. But every school district has to define what's in their directory data and what they release. And you can opt out of that as a parent. There is no omnibus law at the federal or state level that allows you to say, for administrative data that a school collects, hey, you can release A, B, and C, but not D, E, and F. I get your concern. I think the law has not caught up with that. I think the same, it probably is not going to make you feel any better. I think the same thing happens with regard to grown-ups all the time. The law has not caught up to how entities share your data. If you sign up for a newsletter or a website, they're sharing your data, right? Law has not caught up to being able to pull that back.
Right, so, yeah, Kirk.
Can they opt in instead of opting out? Can we change that language?
Can they opt into sharing of?
The parent instead of opting out, which opting out is pretty soft. I mean, if you're going to talk to the parent, say, hey, please share my information with everybody in the world, they need to be able to opt in, not opt out. Opt out is soft.
Yeah, so FERPA's literal language allows you to opt out of the sharing of directory information, and that's a federal statute that covers data privacy. As far as administrative data, there is no federal law or state law that allows you to say you can collect this data on my student or you can not collect this data on my student. One federal law that does sort of touch on that, but it's mostly related to surveys, is the PPRA. And I don't know if you did any research on that. That has to do with schools doing surveys, and there's a list of topics that if you're going to survey on that topic, you have to have parental consent in order to do that survey.
So very aware of the surveys in the state of Nebraska, so yes.
So that's one of the things that you can opt out of, but you have to know to opt out of it as a parent. And when we're talking about FERPA, to go back to your question too, I don't think the general public really understands that there are 9 permitted disclosures that they can share your child's information. And so when you're saying the law hasn't caught up with the technology, I think you're spot on. And I think that as the Nebraska Department of Education, it's our duty to our constituents to make sure that we have the policies in place And that's why I think this document is going to be extremely important, because we have administrators telling parents now that we can't opt our kids out of programs like Securely. And I think that could be detrimental. I mean, I don't know all the details on it, but I do think that, as you're saying, Elizabeth, parents need to have the right to make sure that they know what information is being shared and how.
Yep.
Because when you contract with third parties, it's a free-for-all. So
Agreed.
this is not a partisan issue. This is for every single constituent in our state to be aware of.
So one more follow-up question.
Sure.
How long do we at the Department of Education keep the personally identifiable data?
So because we are the state educational authority, we have personally identifiable data on students going back to 2008, because we frequently have a need to have longitudinal data analyses of what has happened over time.
And just because that's a lot of information on a lot of students,
Yep.
and now, they're adults, what systems do we have in place to prevent hackers? Like, what is our security on that? Because obviously it's all stored digitally.
Yeah, it is fully secured, just like every other digital asset that we have in the department. There's limited access to that data. Like, if the commissioner tomorrow says, hey, I want to dig around in the student data system because I think it'd be super interesting, I probably much to his dismay, I'm going to look at him very seriously and say, well, tell me your business need for this. What's your educational need to know about this data? So we enforce that even in our own department.
So the servers that these are kept on,
Yep.
are they connected to the internet? They can be accessed, or are they only able to access from a system here within the government?
I would have to get Tibor to explain the really detailed intricacies of this. We do house some servers here, but we house the majority of our servers at the OCIO's closed and locked facilities.
Well, I'm less concerned about like the actual physical lock on the door.
Yes.
Because we know that information is, it's valuable and it's accessed through the internet. So that was my question is, are these servers connected to the internet, or is this a closed system that's only accessed through?
They are connected to the internet because some of them are not on premises, so they have to be. But that data is secured both when it's in the server and when it's traveling through the internet.
Well, I just wanted to know because, we just this last year had a very big issue, with our schools having which system is?
Power School.
I knew it wasn't the one that was
Yep.
at my local school. Yeah, the Power School was hacked and all that
Yep.
information of students was stolen.
Yep.
So, okay, well, I look forward to the revisions of ours and finding more ways. Because,
Indeed.
Yeah. It's a brave new world we're living in.
It is.
I just have a simple procedural question.
Sure.
So how often is the manual that you're updating reviewed? If it's been 12 years, is there a regular cycle for review?
There has not been a regular cycle for review. There's a regular cycle of review for rules. We are in the process of updating all of our internal policies, and that is part of those internal policies. Everything needs to be updated more frequently.
So one more question.
Sure.
So it is actually twofold. So are schools required to notify students or parents if the student's data has been hacked, the system's been?
That's it depends question.
Okay.
Nebraska does have a data notification statute that requires notification if certain combinations of data are released in a breach. It is not specific to student data. So a lot of, it's actually more specific to financial data. So like if your name and your social security number are released together, that triggers that statute. If your bank account number and your PIN number are released together. So one thing I'll note sort of to that first point about your name and social security number, we don't collect student social security numbers here. It's just, you don't need them and it's not worth the risk to my mind.
So then, do we currently have a policy that if our system data was breached and people's information back to 2008 was accessed, will we be notifying people? I mean, do we currently have that? And is that something, if we don't have it, that you would be including in the new manual?
That's also an it depends question, because like what you notify people about is based, generally speaking, on federal or state law. And it would depend on what had been breached.
Okay. Okay, Kirk.
So how do we know our schools are compliant with FERPA? Is that?
They give an assurance to the U.S. Department of Ed every year when they publish their FERPA notice that they are complying with FERPA.
Any more questions? Great discussion. Thank you, Kristen,
No
for
problem.
answering them.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think these are really important topics.
I agree.
Yeah. So the motion is to authorize the commissioner to approve contracts for the SLDS grant activities. Would the recording secretary please call the roll?
Jones,
Yes.
Neary, Renner,
Yes.
Douglas,
Yes.
Penner,
Yes.
Christensen,
Yes.
Schoenhoff,
Yes.
Tegmeyer,
Yes.
7 yes, 1 absent.
The affirmative has it, and the motion to authorize the commissioner to approve contracts for the SLDS grant activities is adopted. Agenda item 7.2 is the 2025-2026 deficit budget request. Board members, are there any questions or discussion on this item? Item 7.3, Chair Lisa Schoenhoff will report on behalf of the Planning and Evaluation Committee meeting.
The date was September 4th, 2025. The Planning and Evaluation Committee reports on their committee meeting. I don't know why I always do that. Repeat that. Stop putting that part on the top, please. Meeting on September 4th, 2025. The members present were Lisa Schoenhoff, Sherry Jones, Deborah Neary, and Kristen Christensen. The committee discussed 2 action items related to the approval of Rule 11, teacher waiver requests, and the pilot process for clinical practice. The committee recommends board approval on these items. The committee reviewed a discussion item with NDE staff providing summaries and answering questions related to subject area exams and passing scores for temporary certificates. The committee reviewed a consent agenda item related to the appointment of individuals to fill vacancies on the Special Education Advisory Council. The committee also reviewed informational items related to the accountability system process update, the community achievement plan process and timeline, the assessment and reporting plan, and assessment technical report, the statewide assessment contract for high school, and the social studies standards review. NDE staff will bring these items to a future meeting for discussion and subsequent approval where appropriate. This concludes the planning and evaluation report. I'm Lisa Schoenhoff, the chair.
Are there any questions on the Planning and Evaluation Committee report? Is there a motion on item 7.3.a?
I move to approve the Rule 11 teacher waiver requests from Bloomfield, Stapleton, and Uman Hon Nation Public Schools.
Second.
It is moved and seconded to approve the Rule 11 teacher waiver request from Bloomfield, Stapleton, and Uman Hon Nation Public Schools. Is there any discussion on the motion? The motion is to approve the Rule 11 teacher waiver request from Bloomfield, Stapleton, and Umanhan Nation Public Schools. Would the recording secretary please call the roll?
Douglas,
Yes.
Penner,
Yes.
Tegmeyer,
Yes.
Neary, Christensen,
Yes.
Renner,
Yes.
Jones,
Yes.
Schoenhoff,
Yes.
7 yes, 1 absent.
The affirmative has it, and the motion to approve the Rule 11 teacher waiver request from Bloomfield, Stapleton, and Umanhan Nation Public Schools is adopted. Is there a motion on item 7.3.b?
Yes, I move to approve the pilot process for clinical practice at the University of Nebraska Kearney.
Second.
It is moved and seconded to approve the pilot process for clinical practice at the University of Nebraska Kearney. Is there any discussion on the motion? Sherry?
Yes, President Tegmeyer, I'd like to just offer some information and some questions that I had as I worked through this certain proposal. And just for the benefit of the public and board members, in June of 2024, a revision to Rule 20 went into effect, which allows for educator preparation programs to submit requests to the board for pilot programs or processes that would allow flexibility to one or more regulations found in Rule 20. Within the last year, we've had several such requests, which we have granted, dealing with school counseling program, maybe school psych. I think I'm leaving one out, but we have granted those. This particular request would allow early childhood inclusive teaching candidates to student teach in Head Start classrooms that are not in a formal partnership with an approved or accredited school, which is the current requirement. And so I learned that there are some Head Start programs that are in formal partnerships and some that are not. So that was a new learning for me. So my questions were, is there currently a shortage of placement sites for early childhood student teachers? That was my question, because there's 232 public schools that now have pre-K programs. So I was kind of surprised that we'd have a shortage. But this morning I received some information, some clarification, which was helpful, and that early childhood inclusive would include students with special needs. And so I realize now that not every preschool in our public schools would maybe be serving students with special needs. So that made sense to me. So Jim, thank you for that information you gave me this morning. Because initially, these requests, pilot programs, have been to benefit colleges and students in these colleges. And I viewed this, as I read the proposal, I feel one of the main purposes in this is to provide assistance to Head Start in addressing its workforce shortage. And so that hasn't been a common thread in our other ones. It's usually to help the colleges and students directly, but in this case, we are assisting Head Start in addressing its workforce shortage. So I wasn't sure, even though that is a beneficial result, I didn't know if that was an intent of the Rule 20 revision. So that was my hesitancy. In that, will this set a precedence resulting in other such early childhood programs requesting the same pilot program that are not in formal partnerships? This was just a question I had. So I do not plan to vote in opposition, knowing that this is a 3-year pilot program, so we can kind of see what comes about in these 3 years. And there's no price tag attached. So that makes it more, as a watching out for my constituency. But I did want to publicly state my wonderments and give more information about this. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Lisa?
My request is that after the 3 years is up, when it comes back through, we have a presentation on the metrics of success or lack thereof, and that it does not go right to the consent agenda.
That raises an interesting question, and I don't know if the commissioner knows or Dr. Ford. would a pilot program that was conditionally approved, would that go to the consent agenda in the future? That,
I don't think so.
okay. Getting
I
that,
don't know that we have a precedent for that. We don't, yeah.
we have no precedent. Okay, so just checking, I didn't know. All right. Any further questions or comments on this item? Okay, the motion is to approve the pilot process for clinical practice at the University of Nebraska Kearney. Would the recording secretary please call the roll?
Renner,
Yes.
Douglas,
Yes.
Christensen,
Yes.
Jones,
Yes.
Tegmeyer,
Yes.
Penner,
Yes.
Neary, Schoenhoff,
Yes.
7 yes, 1 absent.
The affirmative has it, and the motion to approve the pilot process for clinical practice at the University of Nebraska Kearney is adopted. Item 7.3.c, subject area examination and passing scores for temporary certificates. Board members, are there any questions or discussion on this item? Item 7.4, Chair Maggie Douglas will report on behalf of the Rules and Regulations Committee meeting.
Sorry, I need to zoom in quick. Okay, the Rules and Regulations Committee reports on the September 4th, 2025 meeting of the committee. Members present were Chair Maggie Douglas, Vice Chair Liz Renner, Elizabeth Tegmeyer, and Kirk Penner. Committee members reviewed the report on rules and committee report. The committee reviewed revisions on Rule 8, Regulations for School Finance and Budgeting, State Funding of Educational Service Units and Learning Communities. The public hearing was held on August 18th, 2025. The committee, having no concerns, recommends approval. The committee reviewed revisions on Rule 86, Regulations and Procedures for Public School Breakfast Program Reimbursement. The public hearing was held on August 18th, 2025. The committee, having no concerns, recommends approval. NDE staff provided information on revisions to Rule 89 regulations and procedures to incentivize distance education. The committee recommends proceeding with a public hearing draft. NDE staff provided information on revisions to Rule 51 special education program standards due to findings received from the Federal Office of Special Education Programs. The committee reviewed the process and procedures to add an endorsement by passing a content test to a teaching certificate. This concludes the Rules and Regulations Committee report. Maggie Douglas, Chair.
Thank you, Maggie. Are there any questions on the Rules and Regulations Committee report? Is there a motion on item 7.4.b?
I move to adopt proposed revision of Rule 8.
Second.
It is moved and seconded to adopt the proposed revision of Rule 8. Is there any discussion on the motion? The motion is to adopt the proposed revision of Rule 8. Would the recording secretary please call the roll?
Schoenhoff,
Yes.
Douglas,
Yes.
Tegmeyer,
Yes.
Jones,
Yes.
Christensen,
Yes.
Penner,
Yes.
Neary, Renner,
Yes.
7 yes, 1 absent.
The affirmative has it, and the motion to adopt proposed revision of Rule 8 is adopted. Is there a motion on item 7.4.c?
I move to approve and adopt proposed revision of Rule 86.
It is moved and seconded to approve and adopt the proposed revision of Rule 86. Is there any discussion on the motion? Motion is to approve and adopt the proposed revision of Rule 86. Would the recording secretary please call the roll?
Tegmeyer,
Yes.
Neary, Penner,
Yes.
Christensen,
Yes.
Renner,
Yes.
Jones,
Yes.
Schoenhoff,
Yes.
Douglas,
Yes.
7 yes, 1 absent.
The affirmative has it, and the motion to approve and adopt proposed revisions of Rule 86 is adopted. The next items on the agenda, items 9.1 through 9.3, are information items and written reports for the board. Agenda item 10. This section of the agenda is intended for board members to offer informal observations of the work of the State Board. Board members may make brief announcements about attendance at future events for the purpose of informing other board members. No business or motions or suggested actions of the board may be offered at this point in the agenda, nor should board members engage in substantive discussion about other agenda items or introduce new agenda items. Kirk, you know, when I was a teacher, we used to call that packing panic. We're not quite done yet. You'll be out of here before the bell rings. I do want to share with my fellow board members that I will be attending our MTSS Summit in Kearney next month, which I guess won't be till after, so I could have told you in October, but I'm actually quite excited for it, so.
I am also going, and I'm also very excited. So I'm glad
Good.
you brought that up.
Anybody else, is anyone, I'm just curious, I know it's a time commitment and it's the week right after our October board meeting, but it's kind of fun to see what our teachers, administrators are learning about. And so we get to go. All right, anybody else? Or anybody other comments too? No pressure on the conference. Okay, thank you to those who attended in person and who tuned into the broadcast. The next meetings of the State Board of Education are scheduled for October 2nd and 3rd, 2025. Note this, in Fremont, Nebraska. The September 5th, 2025 State Board meeting is adjourned.